The following program contains scenes some viewers may find disturbing.
Tonight, a frightening entity is terrorizing this family.
Two hot hands grabbed my wrist and started dragging me under my parents' bed.
Can they survive this haunting nightmare? Betty and Barney Hill were the first alleged victims of alien abduction.
I was the only person on this planet who had absolute proof that life existed in space.
Relive their terrifying close encounter with the actual audio tapes.
I'm giving you stress. Gotta get away.
Meet a sculptor with the psychic ability to recreate faces of the dead.
It's a gut-wrenching experience that just comes out in a visual way with me.
Witness this amazing phenomenon. Have the Native Americans had contact with aliens for hundreds of years?
We are simply their offspring. They are our ancestors.
The startling legends and prophecies are revealed. The sacred art of voodoo is alive and well in America.
You do feel like you leave your body.
This woman's psychic ability to talk to animals may have saved these children's lives.
I think that she averted a tragic event.
On the paranormal borderline.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Frakes. This program is about the people who have crossed the paranormal borderline. Alien abductions, ghostly hauntings, demonic possession. More and more people are trying to cope with paranormal phenomena. In the past, it's been a lonely battle, but now, victims are realizing they are not alone.
Maybe this is Nikki's fiance, Gerald.
Hey, doing just good meeting you.
And that's Connie's fiance.
The people in this room are all victims. Victims of horrible paranormal experiences. They've come together to give each other strength. Bill and Laurie McCauley's story is typical and terrifying.
What do you say to a child? What kind of explanation do you give him? As an adult, you're trying to control your own fear and not show your children how scared you are yourself, you know, and trying to just keep normalcy within the family unit.
The McCauley story began 10 years ago when they purchased what they thought was their dream house.
It fit the bill for what we wanted. It had everything but the white picket fence.
There was a lot of kids to play with, and we just had a good time there.
I had a big yard. There was lots of kids around, and there was just lots of space to horse around in.
But shortly after they moved in, the hauntings started.
During the first year, we noticed a lot of electrical activity was going on in the house. Every time you put light bulbs in, they would just burn out immediately.
Occasionally we'd hear doors open and close, but I assumed it was one of the children.
Bill and Laurie tried to ignore the strange occurrences, but son Jeffrey knew there was something very wrong.
There was this man, and at first he was really nice to me, and he didn't really say anything. He just waved and everything. And he used to play games with me.
And Jeffrey would be sitting there at the breakfast table, and all of a sudden he'd start waving down the hallway to somebody, and we'd say, "Jeffrey, who are you waving to?" He was, "I'm waving it to the man." My parents just thought it was an imaginary friend, because I used to say, like, "Hey, Mom, look at that guy over there," and they'd be like, "Where is he? Who is he?"
The parents may have believed he was imaginary, but the kids knew better.
I really couldn't sleep, because the man, every night he'd just come constantly, pull the covers off me and wake me up.
He would change into like a dragon and try and scare the crap out of me and my brother.
He told me to hate God and like the devil. My parents don't like them.
Soon Laurie began to have her own problems. Someone or something was watching her.
I said to my husband, I said, "I can't take this anymore." I said, "You're going to think I'm crazy." I said, "I don't know who it is or what it is." I said, "But there's something here." I said, "It's following me, it's watching me, and it's really getting on my nerves."
The strange activity in the house intensified. At first, it was just annoying.
Our phone would start ringing about 3 o'clock in the morning, and we would pick it up, and there'd be nobody on the other end. You can hear just crackling on the other end of the phone.
And we had an empty bedroom upstairs, and you could hear someone running and walking around in this empty room, and you go up there and you look, and there's nothing there.
Bill was still skeptical. Although the events were bizarre, he couldn't believe his family was being haunted. Then he was attacked by a ghost and realized they were all in grave danger.
I was sitting at the snack bar in the kitchen. My wife was cooking dinner, and we were just talking, and I had shorts on. I was barefoot. And as we were talking, I felt something grab my foot.
When we looked at his ankle, you could actually see the imprint of fingers that were in his skin, and they all turned to bruises.
It seemed the McCauley's house was truly haunted. Bill and Lori's first concern was for the safety of their kids.
It was very, very frightening as a parent. We took measures to protect our children the best way we knew how at the time.
There was just so much confusion all the time. But they tried to keep it all together and, try and hold the family together and just tell us that God loves us and God is always going to be with us, and that they love us, and no matter what, they're going to try and protect us,
The McCauleys were under siege. For safety, the entire family slept in the same room.
As parents, I think we felt that if we could see our kids, we didn't want them upstairs, our bedroom was downstairs. We felt safer if we were all together. We were right there for our kids if anything happened.
But that feeling of safety was only a cruel illusion. Late one night, it attacked.
Like 2 hot hands grabbed my wrist and started dragging me under my parents' bed.
We put the light on, and you could actually see his arms extended over his head and see him being dragged by something you can't see. You see him moving, but you can't see what it is.
The things that were going through my head, I can't even explain. I was just so scared.
My dad jumped on him and was trying to pull him back and everything, and my mom, she was just screaming and reading from the Bible.
I was like, where is this dragging me? Am I gonna die?
And I'm sitting on top of my son, pulling him by his waist, having a tug of war with whatever it was that was pulling him. The house is shaking.
As quickly as it started, it stopped. And then you look around, and the kids are sniffling and crying. You tell them it's okay, you calm down, you get to bed, and then you look and say, is this really happening? Did this really happen? Am I dreaming? Because it seems so outrageous, it seems so bizarre.
Now that the haunting was violent, the McCauleys were forced to make a difficult choice. Their initial reaction was to run away, but they decided to stay and fight for their home.
We never ran. I think that we're a strong couple, and I was going to be damned that this thing was going to chase me out of my house. It was my house, and that was it.
Whatever had possessed their house was not going to leave quietly. The McCauleys realized they couldn't do it alone and needed outside help. Through psychics and the strength of their religious faith, they found that help. In the process, they regained control of their lives. But all through their ordeal, the McCauleys had trouble finding people to believe and help them. Now they're working to change that.
I'd like to welcome everybody to our VOPS meeting this afternoon. I'm glad to see everybody made it through the snow.
Bill and Lori created a volunteer organization to help the haunted. It's called VOPS, Victims of Paranormal Phenomena Support. Now people have a place to go and don't have to fight alone.
My husband and I felt out of this whole experience that this was our destiny. This is what we were supposed to do. We went through this situation. Now we want to help other people.
VOPS has saved my life. It gives you the strength to do what you have to do to continue your life.
It helps you cope. It helps you control your feelings and emotions, and it helps you not be so scared anymore and take control.
I don't want anybody to go through what my wife and I and our children went through. It's not fair, and there's no reason to go through that. And through education and through knowledge and through good organizations, reputable organizations, there is a way out. There is help.
If you're experiencing a problem with the paranormal, support groups like this one can help. Just remember, the first step is admitting that you have a ghost. We'll be right back.
Coming up next, the first known alien abduction is relived on tape.
He says, don't be afraid. We're not going to harm you.
And later, an artist with unique paranormal abilities that take him beyond the grave.
Most people wouldn't want to wake up in the morning and see my art hanging on their wall.
Plus, an ancient Indian legend of alien contact.
They saw a disc. They saw a round white light.
And the paranormal powers of sacred voodoo rituals come alive.
We've all heard the stories. Alien beings travel light years to Earth, single out human specimens, perform painful experiments, and return the damaged goods. It all started 30 years ago when a young couple went for a drive.
It's right over my right. God. What is it? God, I'm scared. I gotta get my gun. I gotta get my gun!
The Hill case, as far as I'm concerned, is probably the flagship or the granddaddy case of UFO abduction cases.
I don't know, it will hurt. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I'm crying and I tell him it's hurting, it's hurting, it's hurting, take it out.
This case gave us a real chance to expand the whole notion of what this flying saucer stuff is all about.
It's been 35 years since that fateful evening in September of 1961. Her husband Barney has long since passed on, but Betty Hill still vividly remembers that night.
Barney and I are returning from a vacation trip. We left Montreal and headed down through the mountains, when all of a sudden I discovered a new star in the sky. And as I watched, it became bigger and brighter. Then it began to move.
The Hills watched in fascination as the star moved closer and closer.
As it came out over the highway and stopped, we looked up and we could see a curved picture window, a red light on each side. So Barney took the binoculars to get out of the car to try to identify this craft.
The UFO moved toward Barney and stopped.
And he could see a group of men standing in the window looking down at him. And at that moment he became fearful. He had the impression they were trying to capture him.
Barney ran to the car and they raced back down the desolate road.
We tried to tell ourselves that this experience had been a dream. I had dreamed it, and in some way I had transmitted my dream to Barney, so he thought it was his reality.
But when the couple returned home, they discovered that their dream was really a nightmare. Barney realized that there were 2 hours of missing time. They found strange circular marks on the trunk of their car. Both of their watches had stopped working, and Betty's dress was torn and covered with a mysterious pink substance.
Somehow we just had a feeling of contamination. So I said to Barney, this sounds weird, and I don't know why I'm saying it. We've been touched. Somehow we've been touched.
Stanton Friedman, nuclear physicist and UFO investigator, has researched hundreds of abduction cases.
In the Hill case, what was particularly impressive was the quality of the people. Betty is a social worker. You have Barney, who's on the Governor's Civil Rights Commission, and you have Dr. Benjamin Simon, who pretty much wrote the book on treating people who'd had stressful situations. We're not talking about amateur hypnotists. We're not talking about parlor games here.
You're about to hear the actual hypnosis sessions, tape recorded by Dr. Benjamin Simon. Barney and Betty's sessions were conducted separately, but their stories matched exactly. The recordings were made over a 3-month period.
You go deeper and deeper, deeper asleep. You will not be anxious or distressed, but you will remember everything and you will tell me everything.
Yes. Looks like a big pancake with rows of windows and lights. This creature, this leader is telling me something. Just stay there, he's saying to me. It's all right. I'll dig in my head. Just pull the binoculars away. God, give me strength.
All right.
Pull them down. Run. If there's a God, give me strength. Gotta get away.
Betty remembers being taken from the car.
The car motor died. The car stalled. And the medic coming towards us. And he said, don't be afraid. We're not going to harm you. We just want to do some tests. And they're taking me up to the object. Now, I don't want to go on it. I don't know what's going to happen if I go on it. I don't want to go. There's a room. And they start to take me in the room. And the examiner unzipped my dress off. And so I don't have my dress or my shoes on.
I was laying on the table, and I thought, are they putting a cup around my private parts? And they're telling me I don't have to be afraid.
Betty underwent a procedure described by the aliens as a pregnancy test. This test was similar to amniocentesis, a procedure unheard of in 1961.
The examiner has a long needle. It's bigger than any needle I've ever seen. And he sticks a needle into my nail. And I'm crying, and I tell her it's hurting, take it out.
Finished with their tests, Betty and Barney were released and allowed to return to their car. After completing Dr. Simon's hypnosis therapy, their story got out. A media frenzy began, and the Hills were instant celebrities.
Well, we became known almost immediately. Like Bonnie and I would go out to eat, and people would come up and ask for our autograph. I recognized immediately what was happening. I was the only person on this planet who had absolute proof that life existed in space.
For the first time ever, Betty Hill agrees to show our camera crew the dress she wore on the night of her abduction. The garment is Betty's last remaining piece of evidence, and the pink substance from the abduction is still there.
And you can see here the blue, and this is where it became stained by the pink powdery substance. This is a place I cut out and sent it to a lab. They were unable to analyze it. They have no idea what caused the pink stain.
Today, Betty Hill speaks with and meets contactees from all over the world. Since her own paranormal experience, she has devoted her life to helping other victims of abduction. In fact, she's written a book, A Common Sense Approach to UFOs.
There's a lot we can learn from UFOs. And they're here, whether we like it or not, and they're no danger. And there's no reason to be afraid. Whenever I go out at night, I look for UFOs because they're so common. This is New Hampshire. The UFOs are always flying around here. The only way to not see them is don't look at the sky.
Although the whole abduction phenomenon sounds far-fetched, over 8 million Americans now claim they've been abducted. I don't pretend to know what's going on here, but clearly, something is.
Coming up next, travel to the other side with a paranormal artist.
I was going down this darkened hallway past all these bodies.
Then, extraterrestrials give an Indian tribe a frightening glimpse into the future.
Obviously, there could be dramatic tsunamis and things of this nature.
Plus, a woman who uses her psychic warnings to save lives.
It was clearly a mountain lion track.
On any given day, someone comes to your home with a skull and a bag of bones and asks you to spend the next few weeks making them come alive. Does that sound like a nightmare? It's Frank Bender's life.
Most people wouldn't want to wake up in the morning and see my art hanging on their wall. I mean, my art is my experiences in the raw. It's a release to me.
Frank Bender lives with a horrible gift. Day and night, he welcomes the visions of death that come to him. Frank is the intuitive forensics sculptor, perhaps the best in the world. What does he do? Well, he's one part detective and one part psychic. Frank can take a skull with no known identity and sculpt a face over the remains. His accuracy is chilling. He has the ability to see not just the face, but the soul of the murdered human.
Well, forensic work affects my life in every way, shape, and form that you could possibly imagine.
Frank's little shop of horrors is decorated with images of pain, murder, and suicide. Yet Frank dives into this hell with a passion that takes him places no one should ever go.
I have turned bodies over where the scalp actually came off in my hand. I've had to assist pathologists in cutting heads off of bodies, and I've cleaned up and defleshed heads, and I've had maggots crawl up my arms. Doing what I believe in to make sure that I get the full experience of what this is all about.
When law enforcement agencies have reached a dead end in identifying bodies, Frank Bender is a last resort. Trooper Brian Tobin of the Pennsylvania State Police has just such a case. He has been desperately trying to solve a mystery that started with a gruesome discovery. Police found the skeleton of a woman's body in a mining pit.
As the investigation went on and all the other leads were exhausted, it became more and more obvious that we were going to have to turn to Frank to help us get the break that we needed to identify this person.
Police use high-tech science to solve crimes on a daily basis, but technology only goes so far. Frank takes investigations into the paranormal realm.
Frank is there with the skull. He's touching it. I think he picks up things that a computer can't, and he has a lot more experience than a computer. It just gives a more human element.
First, Frank gets every bit of information he can about the victim. Then he applies the clay to the skull, shaping the face he sees in his mind. Is Frank's ability truly psychic, or is it a twisted form of science?
I believe the mind is an incredible computer. There's a certain magic, you might say, that I like to keep going in my work. I mean, it's a gut-wrenching experience that just comes out in a visual way with me.
Possessed with faces of death, Frank lives with his work day and night. It takes a toll on his personal life, particularly with his wife of over 20 years, Jan.
I think that Frank's work definitely has a very strong effect on our relationship. I think the sense of commitment that he has to a project, to a case, I can't help but be affected by it.
It's not easy living with me. I mean, in every way, shape, and form. I mean, you know, John has to be a saint.
When he brings home pictures of the homicide scene, sometimes that's just too much for me. They're really pretty horrific.
Most of us fear the images of our nightmares. For Frank Bender, they hold the key to identifying faceless victims. In one case Frank solved years ago, he spent weeks sculpting the face of a girl, but he could not capture her true image until she came to him in a dream.
I was going down this darkened hallway, past all these bodies, and at the end of the hallway was this gurney with this little girl lying down, and she sat up and looked at me with the most beautiful smile on her face, and she had these two pigtails. And I said, ha, that's exactly how she would wear her hair.
The resemblance was uncanny. A young girl was identified and her mother and stepfather charged with her murder. Frank's dreams solved the case.
I make it a point not to get attached to my subjects because it's like cleaning off the palette. You take the colors off and you put new colors on when you start the next portrait because you don't want to muddy it up with the previous case.
After 2 weeks, Frank completes his work on Trooper Tobin's murder case. What was once a skull is now a human face. Now the police have something to go on.
I think Frank has done an excellent job. I think you could see that this woman led a hard life. You could see it just on her facial characteristics. I think it's going to inject an element of humanity into this case. Before we only had a skull and a bag of bones, basically.
The main thing is to get the job done, get the person identified, and try to find out who killed this individual.
I would ask anybody who recognizes this woman to contact the Pennsylvania State Police. Any evidence that we get is helpful at this point. No matter how insignificant you may feel it is, it could be the thing that leads to this woman's identity and the end of this investigation.
For Frank Bender, solving a case is the greatest reward. And as the world's only intuitive forensics sculptor, he'll continue to dream.
I do what I believe in, and it has its toll. Is it worth it? To me, it is.
Frank Bender never asked to be an intuitive forensic sculptor. But with 31 successes out of 32 cases, the job description is pretty much his alone.
It's concentration fuel. It's study fuel. It's focused fuel. It's Shreddies. Studies show a cereal like whole grain Shreddies helps give kids the mental energy they need. It's job done fuel. See special packs for help and tips on studying this summer term. Shreddies. School Fuel.
Our next story is either one of the most profound prophecies of the 20th century or a really good tall tale. It involves a comet, a wounded alien, and the future of mankind.
The Creator is coming back, and I don't want this to take religious overtones, but we may have to settle all debts.
Robert Morning Sky is a full-blooded Native American. He is a dancer, a storyteller, and a teacher. He has studied ancient Indian prophecies, modern science, and his own research. His results? That mankind may be at the end of its current cycle. It may be a new beginning, or it could be a cataclysmic ending. There is no question that many of Robert's ideas are frightening, and they have also earned him enemies. His interpretation of native mythology is in sharp conflict with some traditional views.
We have my family, my friends, people who work with me. This last year, we have been threatened with arrest for no cause. We have been followed. We have all the cliche stories about being monitored and our phone lines tapped.
It all began with an experience Robert's grandfather told him many years ago. He has never forgotten it to this day.
The story that my grandfather told me was about a star being who fell from the skies and who he and some of his friends rescued.
The incident occurred in 1947, just months after the famous UFO crash at Roswell, New Mexico. It was also only 150 miles from that site. In this isolated area, Robert's grandfather and his companions were beginning a sacred ritual.
He and 5 of his friends were on a vision quest. The purpose of a vision quest is to have a glimpse of the future. And suddenly they saw a disc. They saw a round white light streaking across the sky, almost directly overhead, disappearing over the hillside.
The UFO crashed somewhere ahead of them. Robert's grandfather said the group rushed toward the light.
As they crested the hillside, they saw it below them.
But the men were not scared. Their traditions and folk tales had prepared them for the being they saw, a being they christened Star Elder.
We do not distinguish between human beings and star beings. We are descended from them. So we are simply their offspring. They are our ancestors. So the link is blood. The link is spirit. The link is universal.
They took the being to their cave and nursed him back to health. Using a crystal and communicating telepathically, the alien spoke to his rescuers.
He revealed the history of our solar system. He revealed the history of planet Earth and the history of mankind.
He also told them that the human race had been created by intelligent beings. He called this mankind's hidden history.
The hidden history revolves around civilizations that actually existed in our solar system prior to what we consider to be the beginning of civilization on our planet.
The alien said the creators would one day return, signaled by a great light in the sky. Could that light be a comet? Yes, according to some interpretations of the Hopi prophecy stone. These mysterious drawings denote major changes to come.
There is a very ancient prophecy about a spirit that we call a Kachina, that will return at the end of this world, when this cycle is about to come to a close.
To Judy Brewer, folklorist and editor of Perceptions magazine, Robert's tale of Hopi alien contact is a familiar one.
The return of the star being, the belief in the ET, has been prevalent in every primitive culture around the world. The Dogons, the Celts, the Druids, the Zulus. It's a very predominant belief system.
Robert claims these spirits will soon return. Could the recently discovered Hale-Bopp comet be the warning?
Hale-Bopp is probably about 25 miles in diameter.
Charles Morris is an expert on Hale-Bopp. Although the chance of a comet colliding with the Earth is very remote, it is still chilling.
If something the size of Hale-Bopp hit the Earth, I think the whole world would feel the effects of it. If it hit in the ocean, obviously there could be dramatic tsunamis and things of this nature. If it hit on land, it could indeed substantially alter civilization as we know it.
Comets throughout time have been harbingers of something big. If we look back to the 1200s, there were 19 comets, I believe, in the 1200s. There were plagues, there were wars, it was major disaster.
Is Hale-Bopp the messenger of destruction foretold in the ancient prophecies? Will it hit our planet? If so, then our time may be running out. But perhaps the comet's arrival means something more, something Roberts said is also part of the prophecies. That message is one of a new beginning.
I'm going to suggest that the creators of mankind, that our ancestors, the star beings who have guided, motivated, and taught us to be who we are, that they're coming back.
The Star Elders' revelations and Roberts' research of Native American lore give him a unique outlook on the UFO controversy.
What seems to have escaped many UFO researchers is that many of the crashes, many of the phenomena that occurs, and has occurred since 1947, has been on or near reservation land. Perhaps someone should very carefully and very cautiously, with a great deal of respect, approach some of the Native Americans and say, look, what have you seen? And not write it off as a myth or a legend, but in fact the observations of a very simple and honest group of people who see no disparity, no disconnection between our planet and the stars out there.
Coming up next, journey into the mysterious and paranormal world of modern-day voodoo.
When we're in the middle of praying or playing or in the middle of a ceremony, all of a sudden time will not exist anymore.
And later, a psychic who claims she can communicate with animals.
I think that she averted what could have been possibly a tragic event.
When most people think about voodoo, they think of black magic and zombies in places like Haiti and Africa. But the fact is, voodoo is alive and well in the United States. Here's a look inside the voodoo community.
Ifa is the root of voodoo, and it comes from West Africa.
But when we say voodoo, it means this is my charm. This is my voodoo. Nobody can trespass my life.
To many, the term voodoo conjures up images of dark, mysterious rituals and ancient spells, a blending of religion and the paranormal. But in recent years, a wide range of people are finding strength in the spirituality of voodoo. Ayo and Carol Adeyemi are the founders of Yoruba House, a temple in Los Angeles dedicated to Ifa. Like voodoo, Ifa originated in Africa and uses chants, drumming, and spiritual possession to worship God. But unlike traditional voodoo, such as this gathering on the Caribbean island of Haiti, Ifa's rituals are less severe. In Haiti, believers participate in furious, almost brutal dances, and voodoo leaders sacrifice live animals. Ifa followers in the United States also participate in dance rituals. But here, animals are symbolic, such as this rooster who sweeps away negative forces and is set free. But the spirituality is not compromised.
It's bringing people together from all walks of life who need a community in Los Angeles and want to express themselves and enjoy the African rhythm and flavor. And they're meeting African religion.
Ifa is the basis of voodoo and other religions brought to the West by African slaves. It deals with nature and healing and spirits.
Different people are governed by different orishas, and these orishas are spirits of nature.
These spirits are like angels. Each has its own personality and represents a particular force of nature. These mystical spirits are very important, and communicating with them is an integral part of the ritual. This is achieved with Ifa's dramatic use of drumming and chanting. Once summoned, the Orisha's spirits are believed to enter the bodies of the priests. Suddenly, Ifa followers are not talking to men, they're talking to angels.
That is a trance-like state. It is done by chant with the incense, with the drum, with the bell, with the shakers, with the rattle. Different instruments affect different parts of our body.
Ayo Adeyemi is originally from Nigeria. He is an Ifa priest and a master drummer. He met Carol Zeitlin, a successful advertising executive in New York, where they were married. To them, it was a marriage made in heaven, but not to Carol's parents.
My family didn't want to meet him at all. To them, it was a big shock for me to be with an African man. How could I do this? Marry out of my family, out of my religion, out of the color of my skin.
The Ifa temple in Los Angeles attracts a cross-section of followers to its church. Miguel Rivera and Stephanie Franz are soon to be wed. They have come to Ayo to receive spiritual blessing for their marriage. Using sacred palm nuts, yellow powder, and other ritual objects, Ayo will contact the other side and read their future. It is possible that the gods may frown on their union, but for Stephanie and Miguel, it's good news.
Ayo's going to be marrying us. So that ceremony was the beginning of our actual marriage ritual. And one of the most important elements was that I brought pictures of all my ancestors. So it was a very deep way of calling in that spiritual body to support us.
The information don't come from us. The information comes from the spirits that we invoke. And God sent the message through what I see around you.
But perhaps Ifa's most mysterious powers come in its abilities to heal sick or injured church members. This man attributes the healing of his tumor to the magical powers of Ifa.
Like through chanting, and the songs that you chant have power. You understand? And that can awaken your higher consciousness to your higher self, to heal yourself in all types of ways.
But the cure didn't come only through prayer. Ayo also prescribes various medicinal African herbs. Individually, the herbs, drumming, and chanting of Ifa are not especially mystical, but combined, they seem to take on a paranormal dimension.
The music affects the body, so drumming, particular songs and some beat patterns move energy in the body in particular ways.
But to an outsider, Ifa could be looked on as magic. It is a religion where fire coexists with water, where otherworldly spirits tell futures and offer their guidance. Much of this happens when worshippers enter a trance-like state.
When we're in the middle of praying or playing or in the middle of a ceremony, all of a sudden time will not exist anymore.
You go into another dimension. You do feel like you leave your body. You no longer are thinking about anything. It's like something has overcome you, and you disappear, and then all of a sudden you're back.
Many at the Ifa temple think their religion could be cleansing the crime-ridden streets of Los Angeles.
And I see so much negative vibes, people robbing, snatching purses, murdering. I think just because of the Yoruba house being here with the drumming, it's actually putting out the positive vibes to counteract all that energy that maybe is in this area. To me, it really helps.
This is an ancient and serious religion, even if some of the rituals fall into our definition of paranormal. At the Yoruba house of Ayo and Carol Adeyemi, one thing is not hard to explain: their purpose.
I think creating a center that where people can come to and focus on the spiritual aspect of their life, that's what I like to do, and that's what I feel like we're doing here at Yoruba House.
New Listerine.
Coming up next, a psychic who claims she communicates with animals.
She's telling me she loves me.
Did her powers allow her to hear the threat of a deadly wildcat?
It was clearly a mountain lion track.
You decide.
As we all know, animals, with the possible exception of parrots, are not big talkers. But that doesn't mean they don't have something to say. Rena Elliott is a pet psychic. and she knows. As man encroaches upon natural lands, the deadly mountain lion has nowhere to go. In fact, mountain lion attacks are increasing, and serious injuries and fatalities are on the rise.
There have been some attacks of mountain lions on people more in recent years here in Southern California.
It's really kind of scary because the animals are coming down a lot closer.
Mountain lions will sometimes attack a young horse and also small children. You don't want to let them wander off.
1, 2, 3.
At a unique ranch in Saugus, California, the stakes are particularly high.
2 hands in the air.
Each week, in a special program called Heads Up, physically challenged children receive therapy through horseback riding. Everyone that helps out is a volunteer, including animal psychic Rena Elliott Chow.
They're all saying now that they're glad I'm coming because they want to show me progress that they've made working with the children.
Rena donates her time and psychic abilities to check in with the horses.
Got a little headache, huh? Would you think it's just from the dust that's been kind of flying around here?
She listens and interprets their messages to Heads Up director Nancy Pitchford.
As well. So if I get a new horse in or I have a horse in the program and something's going on, I'll read it from my end. But Rena can get it, quote, right from the horse's mouth.
Recently, she got a deadly warning. The kids were in danger.
One day when I was doing my work with the horses and I was talking to Levi, he said he saw a mountain lion. And I hesitated and I said, "Are you sure it was a mountain lion?" And he said, "I saw a mountain lion."
The doggy psychic said that there was a mountain lion up in the hills. And I'm like, please tell me again.
The other horses started chiming in and saying, "Yes, mountain lion." And the mountain lion is getting closer.
It's very fearful to think that they're coming down this close to where the children are riding the horses or where the horses are, because they'll attack anything if they're this hungry.
A false alarm? Everyone hoped so, but it wasn't.
I got a call from Ken Baker, my caretaker at the ranch, and he said, "Nancy, I was walking the dogs this morning and there's some tracks that I found."
It was about 2 days after the last real heavy rain, and there's some sand piles up there that the rain had smoothed out, you know, real nicely. And I noticed these real large tracks in the sand, perfect imprints. So I called down to the ranger station, and they sent one of the rangers up here.
And they wanted to verify whether it was a mountain lion or not. So I came over and measured the track and the size, shape, and all the other criteria you use to distinguish a cat from a dog and a mountain lion from a bobcat were there. And it was clearly a mountain lion track.
Rena was right. Her extraordinary communication abilities gave everyone the much-needed information to prevent an attack.
More your left eye than your right eye.
I think it was absolutely wonderful that she has capabilities to come down here and read an animal's mind, and was able to at least get it across that there was other problems besides the elements, and there was actually a lion out here. I think that she averted what could have been possibly a tragic event.
She's telling me she loves me. I love you too. I love you too.
The rest of us can only guess at animals' moods. Rena knows.
Oh, I feel so happy. Her heart is filled with joy. That's basically what she's saying.
A unique combination of psychic ability and compassion allows Rena to hear those who have no voice. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next time with more stories that dare to look beyond the paranormal borderline. I'm Jonathan Frakes. Good night.